of Advanced Study in Sanskrit and Prabodhan Manch, Pune, welcome the dignitaries on the stage and the august audience present here on this national conference on the contours of India's civilizational identity. We begin with the recitation of the auspicious Vedic Mangalam by Omkar Joshi.
हरिः ॐ अग्निर्ज्योतिर्ज्योतिरग्निः स्वाहा सूर्यो ज्योतिर्ज्योतिः सूर्यः स्वाहा अग्निर्वर्चो ज्योतिर्वर्चः स्वाहा सूर्यो वर्चो ज्योतिर्वर्चः स्वाहा ज्योतिः सूर्यः सूर्यो ज्योतिः स्वाहा अग्निर्मूर्धा दिवः ककुत्पतिः पृथिव्या अयम् अपागुरेतागुषि जिन्वति अग्निन्दूतं पुरोदधे हव्यवाहमुपब्रुवे देवाओ आसादयादिह पावकानः सरस्वती बाजेभिर्बाजिनीवती यज्ञं वष्टुधिया वसुः मनसः काममाकुतिं वाचः सत्यमशीय पशूनाग्गुरूपमन्नस्य रसोजसः श्रीः श्रयतां मयि स्वाहा ॐ स्वस्ति।
I request the dignitaries on the stage to gather at the auspicious lamp for the lighting. We have with us Honorable Vice Chancellor Sri Venkateshwara Vedic University, Tirupati, Dr. R. Sadashivamurthy, who presides as the chief guest. We have with us Founder and CEO Brihat, Sri Raghav Krishna. Honorable Vice Chancellor Savitribai Phule, Pune University, Dr. Suresh Gosavi. We also have with us Director Prabodhan Manch Pune, Sri Haribhau Mirazdar. Coordinator Member of Management Council, SPPU Pune, Sri Ravindra Shingnapurkar, sir. And Head of the Department of Sanskrit and Prakrit, Pune, Dr. Devnath Tripathi ji. I request the dignitaries to be seated on the stage. I request the Head of the Department of Sanskrit and Prakrit, Dr. Devnath Tripathi ji, to welcome the dignitaries and the august audience.
Identity refers to how we understand ourselves. and how we define ourselves. Most efficient way that we can define ourselves or through we can define ourselves is our civilization. We are going to discuss this civilizational identity in this two-day national seminar on contours of India's civilizational identity. We are honored to have with us today Professor Rani Sadasiv Murthy ji, Vice Chancellor of Sri Venkateswar Vedic University, Tirupati. As the chief guest of this session, he specializes in Sanskrit literary criticism, Vedic prosody, Tantra, Purans, Sanskrit science, Indology, personality development skills, and ancient Indian management techniques. He has participated in several academic activities in foreign countries, especially Russia and Nepal. He has received awards like Sanskrit Bandhu, Pragya Bhaskar, and so on. He has also directed a Sanskrit film, Hidimba Bhimasenam. On behalf of the Department of Sanskrit and Prakrit, Savitribai Phule Pune University, and Prabodhan Manch, Pune, I welcome you, sir. We are also privileged to have with us today Sri Raghav Krishna as the keynote speaker of this session. He carries 23 years of experience across game development industry and academia with expertise in leading creative product development terms, learning design, and or culture. He was the development director of Electric Arts, where he led product operations for Electric Arts mobile game development studio in Hyderabad. After his corporate stint, he moved into public policy to engage with public policy. He was the co-founder and associate dean academics at Rastram School of Public Leadership. At Rastram School of Public Leadership, he is currently the co-founder and CEO of Brihat Culture Creatives and Brihat Educational Trust with a focus on cultural storytelling, IKS centered education, public policy, and leadership development. As a student of Indic knowledge system, he seeks to provide perspectives on tackling global challenges from an Indian civilizational worldview. I welcome you, sir. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to the president of the session of this conference, this inaugural session, Professor Suresh Gosavi, Vice Chancellor of Savitribai Phule Pune University. Had it not been his support and encouragement, the organization of this event would not have been possible. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time for joining us today. I would also like to welcome all the distinguished dignitaries, scholarly participants, and attendees of this conference. Let's join in hands in making this conference fruitful. Thank you all. Thank you.
We are indeed very fortunate to have men of letters and scholars not just grace the occasion, but also support us. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor, Savitribai Phule Pune University, Dr. Suresh Gosavi, to welcome and felicitate the chief guest, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Venkateswar Vedic University, Tirupati, Dr. R. Sadashivamurthy. I request the Director of Prabodhan Manch Pune, Sri Haribhau Mirasar, to welcome the founder and CEO of Brihad, Sri Raghava Krishna. I request the head of the Department of Sanskrit and Prakrit, Dr. Devnath Tripathi, to welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor Savitribai Phule Pune University, Dr. Suresh Gosavi. I request the head of the Department of Sanskrit and Prakrit, and also Center of Advanced Study, to welcome Sri Haribhav Mirazdar, Director of Prabodhan Manch. And I request Dr. Devnath Tripathi ji to welcome Sri Ravindra Shingnapurkar, Coordinator and Member, Management Council, SPPU, Pune. The theme of the conference is Contours of India's Civilizational Identity. I invite Dr. Akshay Ranade from Prabodhan Manch, Pune, to explain the theme and the purpose of this particular conference. Thank you.
Hello. Namaskar. At the outset, let me first welcome all of you on behalf of Prabodhan Manch as well as Department of Sanskrit, and also thank you for being here today. It is indeed privilege to be able to talk about the conference to all of you today. This was conceived through Prabodhan Manch, and later on, whatever we see today is a collective ideation of a lot of people who have went into it, and this is what is happening today. My job here is to give a sense of what we mean by contours of Indian civilizational identity and what we were thinking, what was the seed thought behind this conference in the first place. I don't want to make it sound political, but it is important to understand that we are at an inflection point today. An inflection point in terms of the fact that there is increased social awareness, and more importantly, there is increased acceptance to the fact that there are certain civilizational roots to us, and we are willing to accept that and interpret it the way we want to. And what is important to understand that this is happening at the face of decades of adversarial political discourse that sought to marginalize this civilizational identity and discourse that emanates out of it. Now, this inflection point has, of course, this is the reason why I say this is an inflection point, because there is a resurgence that is happening. These ideas were very much part of our discourse if you go back a bit in history. If you, in fact, we look into the early anti-colonial discourses, I think this civilizational identity was very much rooted there. If you look at Bankim Chandra, we look at Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda, Tilak, Ranade, all of them were rooted in the civilizational idea and responding to the colonial pressures through that discourse. But somehow that discourse got dislocated with an idea which sought to problematize the emergence of modern Indian nation and its civilizational identity, as if these two were at loggerheads of each other. And then we have had a political discourse that sought to intensify this problem. They always marginalized the Indian identity at the cost of what its real roots were. Now, when we say that we are an inflection point, it essentially means that there is certain acceptance, at least at the mass level, that is happening. Mass level in terms of the civil society, when there is a lot. I'm using civil society in purely apolitical terms. I'm a student of political science, and we sort of associate civil society with a lot of political baggage coming from Gramsci and others. I'm not associating civil society in that sense. I'm seeking in purely genuine sense that there is an acceptance of the fact that Indian identity has its roots much before than what is being generally accepted at the academic level. Now, the conference that was conceived and the idea that was conceived was that there is an acceptance, emerging acceptance at the civil society and mass level. It needs to be supplemented at an academic rigor as well. It needs to come through a kind of needs to come to kind of institutions that will give legitimacy to this accepted idea, which is already apparent in the masses. I mean, if we were to talk to normal people and tell them that yes, India is an ancient nation, it is a civilizational nation, there is no problem in normal people to accept that. But when we go into the academic level, this is where the eyebrows are raised. This is where the problems are created. We say lightly that all of us are generally rooted in our civilizational ethos, which is the peculiar kind of education that has spoiled us. So this conference is an attempt to problematize the discourse that has been prevalent for a while, and then provide an alternative academic way to respond to that framework. But response is only one part of it. More important is that we should be able to speak Indian ideas, Indian identities through the roots and epistemological frameworks that we ourselves have had, but somehow were lost in the midst of time. So the contours of India's civilizational identity at the fundamental level is framed in such a way that we will inquire into the roots of our own civilization in the way we think they are more appropriate and more accurate. So when we were sort of drafting, this was again a very interesting exercise. When we were drafting all the different themes for the conference, we realized that there was not much hard thinking in that. All of them came very apparent to us. So if you look at the themes and the papers that we have received for the next 2 days, we are talking about culture, we are talking about folk, we are talking about arts, we are talking about language, literature, foreign travelers, so on and so forth. All this point towards a very apparent reality that there is certain civilizational continuity, but somehow we were not ready to accept it because of the templates that were borrowed and were unsuitable for studying Indian realities. So at one level, the conference and the themes that are arranged and the papers that we have received seeks to contextualize, or may I say, recontextualize our own system in a framework that is far more suitable to us. Now, at academic level, this seems very limited, which is why I want to say that this is not purely academic. It has a utility beyond academia as well. I mean, if we were able to understand our own roots, probably we are able to explain and solve some of the problems that have occurred and have endured for at least 7 decades. Some of those problems were consequenced by the colonial intervention. You look at insurgencies, you look at societal fault lines. And for years, we have been trying to use the templates and ideas that emerged during the colonial period, and we see the problem still persists. But let's say if you were able to look into our own civilizational identity and address those problems, let's say the problems like insurgencies, and identify them as a civilizational whole, give them the cultural experience that they are very much part of, I think we are able to address those problems in much efficient way than the way we have dealt so far. So the thing that I'm trying to emphasize is this is not only an academic exercise. This has utility beyond academia. This has utility in actually addressing some of the issues that we face in our daily lives. We also hopefully seek to create an ecosystem. Now, there will be researchers who have come from across India. They will be presenting on their points. We all will be enriched by the ideas they bring on table. If we are able to create an ecosystem, connect with them, and flourish our own research, I think that will also provide a kind of support that all of us look for, but somehow are desperate, are not getting it. But through this interaction, something that is what we also seek to achieve through this conference. I hope the conversations that we have and the people that we meet, we actually take it forward beyond the 2 days and have a more robust interaction as well. We also think that this would form as a template for future academic study research as well. This is essentially interdisciplinary in nature. You will see when you look into all the papers. And we think that this interdisciplinary Indic research is going to provide a platform as well as a template for future research in the similar domains as well. So the conference is also organized in such a way that it gives us cue for future research. And more importantly, it doesn't seek to answer anything, but at least tries to give us a way through which we can ask right questions. So I think this is another very important objective behind conceptualizing a conference like this. And apart from the utility and the material aspect of it, I think it's also important to inquire into what our genuine roots are. Uh, we hope to sort of do that in the next couple of days. And in a way that will help us, or at least pose questions or challenge some of the very strongly held narratives which are subconsciously been rooted, no fault of anyone's, but something which has been subconsciously rooted as well. Now, Prabodhan Manch, one of our major works is to engage into intellectual conversations with various stakeholders, from students, researchers, general people alike. This conference was an extension of those activities to conceptualize a way through which we can bring academics from across the disciplines, from across India, to engage, ideate, and think on a common topic, which will provide more cues for our further research as well. I hope we will be able to sort of come to that at the end of 2 days. We will be more enriched, we will have more connections and more partnerships for doing research, because understanding India is not going to happen in silos, will require more cooperation than competition, and one of the ways to do it is to have cooperative research as well. So I hope we will be able to do that. With that, I'll take your leave. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I hope you enjoy the 2 days. Thank you.
Going back to the roots, understanding the macro and the micro of civilizational identity of India on a fundamental level, and investigating into the civilizational continuity. Some very interesting points which Dr. Ranade has laid down. At this juncture, I would like to invite Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Venkateshwara Vaidik University, Tirupati, Professor R. Sadashivamurthy, who also presides as the chief guest, to share his thoughts.
ब्रह्मेन्द्रवन्दितपदाम्बुजशङ्खपाणि श्रीमत्सुदर्शनसुशोभितदिव्यहस्त कारुण्यसागर मनोज्ञ सुपुण्यमूर्ते श्रीवेङ्कटेश मम देहि करावलम्बम् श्रीवेङ्कटेश मम देहि करावलम्बम्. Sabha Saraswati Namaha. Respected Vice Chancellor and the President of this inaugural session, Sri Professor Suresh Gosaviji, and then the other dignitaries on the dais, Sri Haribahu Mirasdar, the President of Prabodhan Manch, and other dignitaries on and off the dais. Pranams to all. As I am new to this dais and also to your university, I could not identify the great people of this gathering by name. Particularly, I must not miss our one of the co-speakers, particularly keynote address is being delivered by Shri Raghav Krishnaji. Pranam to you all. Now, this is a very interesting subject. on which this conference is being conducted, Contours of India's Civilizational Identity. When this subject is seen by me, I was confronted by a very tiny thought. That is it to search for the identity of India's civilizational aspect or Bharat's civilizational aspect? This is the first question struck to my mind. If it is of India, UNO has already given us the nationality. So we need not identify afresh. If it is about Bharat, yes, we have to peep into our literature, we have to peep into our tradition, we have to peep into our culture and all other aspects. So when we start doing this, the roots of civilizational identity, particularly contours. When we say contours, contour is, as dictionaries help us to understand, it is a disorderly outline. Yes, of course. When we start our journey, our approach is always disorderly. And when the journey is continued, yes, it will have a clear-cut boundaries and territories. That's why let us begin with contours only, and afterwards we can have a wonderful and beautiful boundaries of this subject, which I have to say at the end. In the beginning itself, I would like to say, that is, it is my sincere, earnest request to the Vice Chancellor and also all dignitaries, whoever are here, to make this a discipline, to have a department with this concept. And let us have future pursuits constantly in various dimensions of 360 degrees completeness. So that is required. So when we start doing this, yes, definitely we can comfortably identify our Bharat's, that is civilizational identity. Civilization is related to people. People who are, particularly as per the dictionary's help, people who are staying in urban areas, they are civilized, and who are staying in villages, they are uncivilized. This is usually a concept. But all our knowledge systems in our ancient India began in the forest, not even in villages. Muninam dasasahasram, annapanadi poshanat, adhyapayati viprarshi, asau kulapati smritaha. This was the age-old definition of evergreen information for us, defining who is a chancellor and vice chancellor in the same capsule. Muninam dasasahasram. So 10,000 munis are educated in each ashram. This is the definition of an ashram. Ashram is a place where we can get knowledge, where we are taught under certain gurus. How many students are there? 10,000. Those 10,000 students are called munis. Why? Maunan munihi. Because they observe silence while learning, they are called munis. Muninam dasasahasram annapanadi poshanat. By providing food and shelter, they are taught. That's why they are called. So annapanadi poshanat adhyapayati. He makes the gurus to teach all these branches of learning to these people, these 10,000 people. So he is called Kulapati. So this was the ancient definition from the Smritis. So Smriti is the shade of are shadow of Vedas and as old as the Vedas. In those Smritis, so because we are remembering what was taught for us to live as a human being, not as a civilian, not as a villager, not as an urban person, but as a human being. To live as a human being, whatever is essential, that was taught there, and no roof, under the roof of the building, it was not the concept. Under the roof of the trees, green trees, they used it to learn all these subjects. That's why it was the subject. So what were taught there? 1131 Veda Shakhas were taught, which are the sources of knowledge, and then 500 Smritis, the canons of code of living. Those are Smritis, and Puranas, the digests of chronicles of ancient Indian history. Unfortunately, we are keeping of our Puranas away from our society, and the Itihasas, two Itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata, which could make us all civilized. And then 350 Shastras, which were mentioned in the Mahabharata, and also in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, and after that, innumerable kavyas. Even every kavya has a keen thought offering to us. And all these are the things besides these 64 arts, fine arts, and 500 Panchali Kalas. This was the capsule or package of curriculum offered in those universities. So everyone was, what is the use of Maunam? So here we have to remember the words of Vaiyakaranas of our ancient system. Ekamatra laghavena putrotsaham manyante Vaiyakaranaha. Even if we can save a syllable while expressing our thoughts, it can be celebrated as an occasion equal to that of a child's birth in our house. Why? Because interestingly, in Rikpratsyakhya of Saunaka Maharshi, he says about the physiognomical phonetics, wherefrom the speech sounds are produced and uttered. So that was taught even in pre-Paninian days. Saunaka Maharshi gave this Rikpratsyakhya for us. Here in this, he says, Vayu pranaha, koshtamanu pradanaha, apadyate shwasatam nadatam va vaktrihayam kantasya previshya. This was the definition given by him. Pranavayu, whichever is essential for our living, the same pranavayu is used for our utterance, speech also. So, fan is there, for instance. It has some lifetime. After the ball bearings and others are lost, it cannot work. Similarly, our system also is fixed to have certain count of breathings. So, when this count of breathings are used for speaking, the age will decay. That's why what was suggested, they say Vayu pranaha koshtamanu pradanaha. So pranavayu from the Muladhara chakra, Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddhi, Ajna, Sahasrara chakra. In between Ajna chakra and Sahasrara, a great universe is there, not merely a world. A great universe is there from the Jnana chakra, Ajna chakra to Sahasrara chakra. Of course, it is a different subject. So, the journey through, when the pranavayu starts its journey from Muladhara, when it is crossing one after the other, when it reaches Manipura, here we say this is the store of syllables, vowels and consonants. That Muladhara, it is just beginning its journey as just nada. But when it reaches here, Manipura chakra, then it assumes a form of vowels and consonants. It is a stock of all syllables. And according to what he has, from the speaker's choice, it starts getting a shape in the Varapanjara. This is Anahata Chakra. After that, this is called Vaikari. When it comes out, then it assumes the shape of words. So what is our investment? Our Vayu. So if we can say a single syllable, yes, it extends our life. That's why after every speech, our ancient speakers recommended, our ancient seers recommended us to observe pranayama. In the modern rituals, we are all holding nose and reciting mantras, but we are not following the pranayama prakriya. That is essential to extend or to lengthen our life. That is why when we invest our pranavayu, we are missing the essential things for our living. For whose sake we should live? We should live for the sake of the society, not for our own sake. Vyaktitva and Murtitva, individuality and personality. These two are essential. Individuality is the assessment of our own skills, our own talents, and our own abilities, to which extent we have. That is individuality. And personality is how we offer to the society our skills, our talents, and our abilities. This is the slightest difference between individuality and personality. And from these two, when we can acquire these two, yes, the other thing readily awaiting us is service. Service to the society, service to the mankind, service to other worlds also. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. This is the aspiration of our Bharat. But not Bharatiyaha sukhino bhavantu. It was not the confined thought. Andhras should be comfortable, or any particular regional people should be comfortable. It was not the regional confinement was not there. That was the civilizational identity of our country. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu akaschid dukkha bhavet. This was the aspiration of our ancient seers. So, was it only ethical teaching? Was it only spiritual teaching? Was it only philosophical teaching available in our ancient texts? Simply, we cannot say no, but there is something else. That is about where we have to identify, if we have to start putting this question, right from the day of the emergence of the Vedas till date. Our culture is Vedic culture. Our tradition is Vedic. Veda and Vedic are two different things. Vedas may be confined to the 1131 sakas which are not available now. Out of 1131 sakas, only 11 sakas are available in the modern times. That also not being properly protected by us, preserved by us. Of course, proudly I say that in our Sri Venkateswara Vedic University, we are able to offer teaching in 7 Vedasakas out of 11. Ours is the only Vedic university in the entire country which is offering teaching in Vedic 7 Vedasakas. So, Vedasakas are being taught, and after Vedasaka is Samhita Bhaga, and after that Brahmana, then Aranyakas, then Upanishads. Upanishad literature is wonderful literature which can give us an excellent personality for everyone if we can follow the traits which are given there, which simply are being ignored. Similarly, ethics. Ethics is a very, we take it in a very lighter vein. But ethics are essential. They are the breath of the nation, they are the breath of the society. Why? Social ethics, individual ethics, administrative ethics, and ultimately spiritual ethics. There are four types of classification. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshanti, arjavam, acharyopasanam, saucham, stairyam, atmanigraha, indriyadheshu, vairagyam, anahankara evacha, janma mrichu, jara dukkha, dosharu darshanam, asaktir, anabhishvanga, putradhar, gruhadishu, nityamcha, samajittatvam, ishtanishtopapatishu, maricha, ananya yogena, bhakti, ravyabhicharini, vivikta desha, sevitvam, artir, janasamsadi, adhyatma jnana, nityatvam, tattva, jnanardha darshanam, yet jnanamiti proktam, ajnanam, yet ataha anyatha. So like this was instructed in the Bhagavad Gita. Whatever is simply in these 5 slokas explained, that is the essence of all ethics. These are the principles which are essential for every person, every individual, for the entire society, for the nation, for every administrative system, and also for everything else. When we are strong from each of these qualities, yes, our nation can be strong. So, ethical identity is required for national or civilizational identity. Wasn't this there? Yes. In our Vedic times, it was practiced and preached. Similarly in the Puranas. Similarly in every age. I say that the organizers can remind me if I am exceeding my time. So I say that this is these principles are not merely for teaching others, but for practicing. Besides this, what are the other aspects which are available in our Vedas? When we want to start searching for, yes, the first one which attracts us is the inquiry into cosmology. Vedic cosmology has 5 stages. Chaos to cosmos, that was the first stage. Then there will be a being which is the root of the emergence of the universe. That is the second identity of the being, which is not controlling, which is transforming itself into the universe. That energy, that is the cause of the universe. That is second one. And then the continuity of creation and evolution. Creation is not a new beginning according to our ancient Vedic seers. It is an evolution process only. One thing into other, one thing into other, like this transformational always. This is one. And the prototype creation and the batch-wise creation. In the batch-wise creation, all of us are part. Prototype creation is human beings, animals, birds, lifeless things, living and non-living beings, like this, all kinds of classification come under prototype creation. Hills, dale, and then mountain, the oceans, rivers, etc. All these are prototype creations. Particularly Ganga is a batch creation. It has a life, beginning and ending. Similarly, everything else. So, these type of creations and continuous existence and ever-changing existence of the universe. This was all the content of our ancient the cosmology, Vedic cosmology. There are 250 cosmological suktas available in the entire Vedic literature. I could identify so far. Beyond my vision, there are many things. And even for that sake only, because of this thirst, for the last 42 years, of course, it is a personal note may be there, I may be excused. For the last 42 years, I sleep only 2 hours a day. The rest of the 22 hours, I spend for whatever is available in the ancient text to note down and to preserve at least in the notes, like this. So in this manner, after cosmology, we have phonetics. Phonetics is of 2 types, articulatory phonetics and physiological phonetics. And similarly, physiological phonetics is helpful in finding solutions for autism and speech disorders, etc. also. Sadanchita, Mudanchita, Nikunchita, Patanjala, Jalanchalita, Manjukatakam. Like this. Kirite, Nisisho, Lalate, Hutasho, Bhuje, Bhogiraja, Gale, Kalimacha, Mahadevatulyam, Parandaivanam, Najane, 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 Najane. When we teach this to a person, a child with autism or speech disorder, slowly he can pick up an excellent speech abilities. Similarly, they have given and listed out grand the qualities of good speech. That is, Tatyam, Patyam, Sahetu, Priyam, Atibrudulam, Saravat, Dainyahinam, Sadhiprayam, Durapam, Savinayam, Asatam, Chitram, Alpacharincha, Bahvatam, Kopasungam, Smitayatam, Ghanam, Dakshinya, Sandeyahinam, Vakyam, Bruyadrasajna, Parishati, Samaye, Saprameya, Pramattam. These are the 18 qualities required for a good speech. So, these can be developed in every person. So, this is one thing. Similarly, about mathematics, if we want to say, mathematics, arithmetic is there, Bijaganitam is there, I don't call it algebra, Bijaganitam is there, Rekhaganitam is there, Trigonometry is there, Goliya Trigonometry is there, Dvairasika Siddhanta is there. What are these? These are certain branches of mathematics of ancient times, particularly during the times of our ancient Vedic seers, who can be called as the first generation scientists, not only of our country, but of the entire Vishwa. How? In the Shukla Yajurveda and Krishna Yajurveda, if we observe, we can see the basics of arithmetic. Okay, sir. 2 more minutes are there. Thank you very much. The basics of arithmetics. This is from counting the world, we have to begin our journey. The end of mathematics is not to count the things. From counting many to one, that oneness is the source of the universe. To find out the source of the universe, we have to count. That is many to one. And after many to one, again, let us revert back. Bijagenitam, Avyakta Ganita it is. The cause of the universe is Avyakta. And this Avyakta Ganita is such discipline of mathematics from the source to the universe. That is Avyakta Ganita. Hence, I discourage to call this algebra. So, this is Bijagyanita in the form of Brahma, or Brahma itself is a very interesting word. Brahma Vispotani Vyapani, which was much, much smaller than the full stop at the end of the sentence which we put. When it exploded and exploded, the universe came into existence. That is called Brahma. So, this Brahma Vispotani and Vyapani. This is the root of the Brahma. So, this is Bijagyanita. And after that, Rekha Ganita is used. The geometry was used for altar, Vedic altar preparations. Bindu Trikona, Vasukona, Dasharayikma, Manvasranaga, Dalashoda, Patrayiktam, Vrittatrayancha, Dharani Sadanatrayancha, Sri Chakaraja, Udita Paradevataya, in the Sri Chakra, every aspect of geometry is available. Of course, time is too short. I would like to learn 3 more minutes, though I am confined to 2. Here, this Rekha Ganita, after this, trigonometry, trigonometry, and spiritual trigonometry. In the Khagala Goliya Adhyaya, they used this to find out distances from the earth to the sun, earth to the moon, and from the distances between different, unfortunately, I don't call them planets, they are celestial beings, because planet has a very confined meaning, but Graha doesn't have such meanings. That's why Graha is different. the sphere is different from planets. That's why the distances, to calculate the distances and heights, etc., trigonometry and Goliath trigonometry were used. And after this, Pascal triangle, Ma, Prama, Pratima, Upama, Samma, Gayatri, Vishnu, Anushtu, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtu, Jagati, Atijagati, Shakvari, Atishakvari, Asti, Atyashti, Dhruti, Atidhruti, Prakriti, Akriti, Utkriti, Sankriti, Avikriti, Vyatkriti. From these 26 classes of meters, to find out the possible metrical varieties, they used this Pascal triangle in the times of Pingalanaga. Accordingly, they could find out 13 crore 42 lakh 17,726 varieties of samavrittas. Similarly, vishamavrittas and other arthasamavrittas. For that, again, they have followed the Pascal triangle method of calculation. In this way, mathematics is there. Finally, I would like to say management about. In the year 2012, when I was an inmate of National Sanskrit University, of course, now I am in Vedic University. When I was in National Sanskrit University, the then Vice Chancellor asked me on the call of the UGC to develop an innovative PG program. He asked, can we develop anything? Yes, sir, we can develop anything, I told. So, then what would you like to develop if you are asked? Then I told, yes, I would like to develop a 2-year PG program in management. So actually in the name of MBA and BBA and other programs, what we are learning is the left out curriculum in foreign countries 40 or 50 years ago, they are being learned by us in the name of modern MBA. But India doesn't want this. Our ancient management system is required. So I have prepared with base that is from grassroots. I have touched every aspect of our ancient Indian Vangmaya, not literature. So therefrom, and I developed this. So far, 700 people learned under this title, Masters in Ancient Indian Management Techniques. At another time, I will share all these thoughts. So, this is the management. Simply to say, one management giant asked me, what is simply, you give me in 5 sentences, what is the essence of Indian management system, he asked. Then I told, 5 sentences are not necessary, only 3 words are enough. What are those? Shodhana, sadhana, bodha. Shodhana is first clean yourself. Clean your inner self and external. And sadhana, put it in practice. Bodha, then aware. When you can know that you are a good instrument, you will be able to deliver anything, manage everything very easily, whether you are a society or an individual. That's what I told. Of course, this needs a lot of explanation. In this manner, finally, with single Subhashita, I conclude. Kurvano kurtam amitam mitam shayanah bhunjano mitam amitam parandadanah janano bahuvishiyan mitam bruvanah utkarsham bhuvilabhate savarthamanah. This is an example of Vardhamana Vritta of Pingalanaga given by Halayudha. He says, Kurvano kritim amitam mitam shayanah. Work more and sleep less. Don't be sleepless. Sleep less. So, work more and sleep less. Bhunjano mitam amitam parandadanaha. Eat less and offer much to others. Janano bahishyan mitam bruvanaha. Know many things, speak concisely. Speak in brief. Of course, I exceeded my time. Utkarasham bhuvilabhate savarthamanaha. He is ever progressive in the world. Swasti prajabhyaha paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahishaha gobrahmanebhya shubhamastu nityam loka samastaha sukhino bhavantu. This is the territorial identity of our ancient Bharat's civilizational identity. Dhanyavadaha. So, I am given this excellent opportunity to share my thoughts. Pranams to everyone on the dais and off the dais. Namaskar.
We express our gratitude to Sir for giving such a detailed account of the all-encompassing worldview which contours the civilizational identity of Bharata. I invite the founder and CEO of Bharat, Sri Raghava Krishna, to deliver his keynote address at this point.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I think it's a travesty that a scholar, a genius, and a stalwart like Professor Rani Sadashivamurthy Garu has to give way to what we call a keynote address. It's a tough act to follow, but we can bask in the glow of such scholarship. Respected Vice Chancellor Sir, members of the dais, dignitaries, and the August Assembly that we have today, I do not consider it particularly relevant that I am here to speak to you about Indian knowledge systems today. I speak to you more as a concerned citizen, a member of the society, and most primarily a father. And I'll talk to you about my own journey through the lens of Indian knowledge systems and why I hold the intellectual and moral conviction about Indian knowledge systems, not just as a means for reclaiming the contours of our civilizational identity, but for shaping the global future itself. And I will try and present that case to you with the hope that it resonates, because while there is much to reclaim, there is also a danger that we're losing the attention of the people who will shape the future. And there is today a conflation of anything ancient with archaic. And our case and our job here, and I look at this as my generation's job, in many ways also because I was part of an industry which, which propounded and which sort of perfected the art of addiction as a penance to try and make sure that the problems that we created, we also attempt to solve them. And my quest has been to solve those problems, and I find Indian knowledge systems to be the only potential epistemology to do that. This is my conviction, and I offer it to you with all humility. I love the way Akshayji set the context for this, because he spoke about the contours of civilizational identity, the chasm that we have today between what the society is experiencing and what academia is pursuing, and similarly what the community wants and what the state provides. So there are a few fault lines. There are a few fault lines within our own society that we need to actually tackle, and that is relevant for the global futures. Just as a simple case, you cannot ignore 1/6 of the humanity, soon to be 1/5 of humanity anyways. We will be, top 3 economies in the world by all projections by 2050. So India's rise in certain dimensions is already assured. If you've been following the script, particularly what External Affairs Minister Jaishankar ji keeps repeating, there is an ascendance of India's not just reputation but also impact in the world stage. And we must be very, very clear and very sure that it won't be taken well. And for that, we need to understand what is the context of the world today. And I'll try and paint a picture of the, the world as I see it, and why the battle for knowledge will be fought on the battle of epistemology, and why Indian knowledge systems is the way out. So what is happening in the world today? And for all my young friends, scholars and students, it's important to locate it not just as an intellectual pursuit, but also to locate your own identity within this. If you're a global citizen, in many ways, you're also rootless. And that is what we are experiencing in culture today, a sense of rootlessness, a sense of nihilism, a sense of utter unbelonging. And Indian knowledge systems is your friend to find your belonging. Today, as we speak, there are 2 wars going on in the world, a potential third one brewing, most likely would happen in the next year or so, if not sooner. We are entering a world of economic contraction in many ways. India shines and stands out as a growing economy amidst a global climate of economic recession. We will definitely face the planetary boundaries. While Graha is expansive, there is an ecological crisis and an environmental doom that is entirely bought by systems and structures that we've created. Scientists today call this the Anthropocene, which means that for the first time in the history of our civilization and the global civilization, it is our actions that have an asymmetric impact on the ecology. So far, we were in fact driven by whatever changes happened, the tectonic shifts, but today we are accelerating. There is a wonderful line by one of my favorite philosophers, contemporary philosophers, Daniel Smartenberger, and he talks about how we are approaching the wisdom of gods, or we are approaching the power of gods without the wisdom of gods. We must reflect on what this means. Today, we have the same worldview and the same mental models and the same power dynamics that were there perhaps for the last 2,000, 2,500 years, but the locus of our damage based on our actions is much bigger. If there was a tribal identity fostering warfare about 1,000 years ago, whatever action the tribal chief took impacted only the community within that locus. Today, if we have a global nuclear war, then the locus of that action is the entire global civilization. So when we talk about knowledge, wisdom, and the need for looking at an alternate epistemology, we are talking about the global civilizational survival itself. And as India rises, Jaishankarji talks about this, you will see the efforts from all the powers who are already in a dominant position today to what they call freezing the frame. Freezing the frame is to actually freeze whatever positions confer advantages to certain powers today. Akshayji noted the colonial history, and we must reflect on what that means for academia as well. But whatever benefit is there today as part of a global structure, as India pushes to enter the global league, powers that are already feeding off the existing structures will try to push back. It is to be expected. And we are not going to find solace by following the script that they've given for us. So it's not an esoteric or a nationalistic or a reactionary pursuit. It is a very real pursuit that actually impacts your children, the future of their education, because we will make decisions about where our kids will go and study. And when they go to US today, in a country, for example, which is facing a situation of an aging population and declining power and reactionary forces reclaiming national identity, your children, your brothers, your sisters will face identity attacks. So the contours of civilizational identity is not a mere academic pursuit. We are already seeing increased cases of violence in US universities when our children go there. There are attacks, not just physical, but also intellectual, emotional, and psychological. You are questioned on the moral basis of your existence. You are actually deprived of your own agency to define yourself, because there are certain thought modes that precede your entry into that landscape. I discovered this as part of my experience in the corporate world. And then my quest for civilizational identity and whether I belong to something moral and something to be proud of took me into this journey, what we call Indian knowledge systems. But I will offer one story from recent origin, which clarified to me all the things that we heard today, this morning, the great, glorious knowledge tradition. As Kapil Kapoorji says, India is a knowledge-centered civilization. India is a value-centered culture. India is a duty-centered society. So knowledge, values, and duty, this is the combination or the contours if you want to understand this. But what is this knowledge that we're talking about? Radhakrishnan asks in his initial commentary on Principal Upanishads, is there a claim to Indian exceptionalism? Because when we're talking about Indian knowledge itself, there is apparently a claim for exceptionalism there, because knowledge is knowledge. What is Indian knowledge? So there is a way that we need to articulate, frame, and defend this. And there are ways in which we can do that as well. But the story that I am alluding to is from Balasore in Odisha. About 4 months ago, or 5 months ago now, there was a terrible train accident here. Some of you might remember. Jo bhi the, all the people in the train, they died in just 2 minutes. It was all over. The train flipped. None of them survived. And it was a moment of national mourning. All of us, when things like this happen, it shakes our foundational belief. You know, we plan for 5 years. Interview questions are about where do you see yourself in 3 years from now? And something like this really violates our sense of time. And when I looked at it, I was affected by it as the rest of us were. But 11 days later, there was a 1-minute news clip in one of the channels, and I don't think it captured the attention, in any other channel. But there was just a 1-minute clip where the villagers of all the nearby villages of Balasore, where whatever was close by, they came together on the 11th day, and they offered what we call the tarpan, or the ritual. Now, this clarified to me everything that I had to understand about our civilization. Let's reflect on this for a minute. There is no state directive to do this. There is no market incentive to do this. There is no pressure, extraneous pressure, or a need to do this. And what does this involve? They have to come together early morning. They have to offer their hair. They tonsure their heads. They observe fast the entire day. They do rituals. They do a puja. And by evening, they'll have to offer the ablutions and go back. What made these villagers, who were absolutely unconnected to the people who died? There is no connection. They were not kith and kin. What made them come and do this, offer a part of themselves for somebody who they will never meet or have never met? If we understand this, we understand the keys to Bharatiya civilization and why this is different to any other civilization. What is the claim that we have of our exceptionalism? Now, why did they do this? They did this because there is an eschatology, there is a whole metaphysics of soul migration that is there in their darshan. And who are these people? These people are, like Akshay said, people who are not connected to the education system. Now, it is the uneducated, illiterate villagers who came out and understood Rita, Karma, Rina, Punarjanma, Punya, Papa. They didn't have to go to an academia or university to be. Whatever ideas that were really animating their worldview, they are living it. This is the difference between a civilization which is entirely knowledge-centric versus entirely, integrated between knowledge and behavior. This simple example of villagers coming together to perform a ritual for somebody who died and who they will never meet tells us how this civilization and this geography was sacralized. So if we have to understand the contours of Bharatiya civilization and claim our identity and tether it to that, like Sir explained, the word contour itself comes from the idea of sculpture, if I'm not wrong, 16th, 17th century Italian and French origin, where contour means you are actually giving a form, comes from sculpture. Like the famous example where if you have to have a sculpture, the famous sculptor said, for 3 months I just took rest and I actually took away what is not needed. The sculpture was already there. I didn't craft it. I actually took away the unwanted portions. That's what all the master craftsmen tell us. So we'll have to actually do the same thing. We'll have to remove the unwanted portions. And then the emergence of what is our civilizational identity will come forth. And then we will have to articulate it to the next generation in a manner that is moral and intellectual so that it can give purpose to their life. So while this karma, rina, papa, punya, punarjanma metaphysics is animating the villagers and they are able to find consonance between ideas and life, we have a struggle because we are going through a different knowledge system and therefore our unlearning journey is much longer. We will have to actually, like Sai Deepak ji wrote in that book, how do you discover the loss of something that you don't know exists? So our work is actually twofold. We first have to recognize that there was something, then recognize the loss of it, then recognize the ways to reclaim that. This is the job for academia. If we are intellectually convinced about this, like Sir said, if we have to look at a real inquiry through a systematic thing like a department or a discipline, then we will have to question the fundamentals of what we consider knowledge production today itself. And this is critical, like I said, for national integrity. It is critical because if we don't do this, somebody else will define, because that is the freezing of the frame. In a world economy that is shrinking, in a world economy that is going to face wars, in a world economy which is going to fight extraordinarily more for resources, if we don't produce our own knowledge coming from our sources, we will forever be consumers. So this is the strategic context in which we need to understand Indian knowledge systems. There is another national context that we need to understand this in, which is very, very existential. Whatever we call Bharatavarsha, and we'll talk about that in the cultural identity sense, but there is today the world of nation states. All of the world is organized as nation states. Your highest identity today, in a very practical way, is as an Indian. Because if you have to go out of India, then you will need a passport and a visa. That's the definition of identity. Now, there are parts of India where the tethering to the Indian sovereign is weakened. And that is because theories and disciplines, when you think about sociology, when you think about anthropology, and if you go back to the history of origin of these disciplines emerged in a context where the idea was to study the other. So when we take those disciplinary frames and study ourselves, we are actually studying ourselves as the others would. We are, through a process of engagement in this discipline itself, actually resulting, or the process is resulting in a distancing of ourselves from our context. Anthropology, for example, if you look at it, is the way to study other cultures in a lived way. That means that you're already saying, yeah, I'm removed from that. Whereas the tribals in Odisha did not feel it. They did not question the idea of Punya, Papa, Punarjanma. That is because there is an organization of political history in the world that has come to us in the last 400, 500 years, which is entirely European in its nature. It has great utility. I think we should study it for what it is. All advances in sciences, all advances in humanities, all advances in social sciences, all natural sciences. We must study all the advances with respect, but we must also be able to look at it from our ethical temper. Do we see sustainability in this? Our current head of ORF, which is a strategic studies department, they're already talking about the unsustainability of nation state in a digital future. Today, our kids get more information, more context, and more belonging from their Facebook group, their Twitter chat, and their Instagram group than perhaps feeling a part of the society. And this is untenable. So this pressure, this fault line between what we are claiming as civilizational identity and what culture today, a technology culture, is supplying them, it is going to result in a mass delusion. It already is. If we don't give this clarity through academia, as teachers, as educators, they will see clarity through their global engagement. And that will only lead to a lot of distancing. And this is not going to be just at the national level. That is why you see movements of separation coming out of certain states in India. And this will then come to family. The simplest way, as a non-traditional scholar who has respect, and I look at my own role and my organization's role as simply serving the tradition, I understand civilization and the contours of this civilization as three great institutions. Family, the first great institution which Bharat has actually emphasized. It doesn't matter which religion, which culture, which region, which corner of this nation that you come from, you will see the same underlying theme about family as a central tenet. And this family is under attack today. When you study yourself as the other, you don't have access to your own culture. Family is under attack today. And this is the first great master institution that Bharat has created as the civilizational continuity. Even in terms of purely evolutionary theories, when you think about Darwinian evolution, you need diversity, you need transmission, and you need natural selection. These are the mechanisms through which all cultures propagate. Similarly, in cultural technologies as well, you create certain institutions which are actually about transmitting your values and culture. And that primary institution is at risk from many, many sources today. The second great institution that this civilization created for transmission and undiluted transmission, and this is what 6 years ago was my first opportunity to listen to you, sir. And the way I think about Indian knowledge systems and how we frame it for our young people today is that it has to give you 4 emotions. At a very fundamental level, the voice inside your head, when you think about meaning, it has to be drawn from Indian civilizational knowledge as 4 emotions. The first one is wonder. Our education has systematically distanced us from the ability to wonder. We listen to a great scholar and we don't have the ability to wonder about how the same sound which was uttered 7,000 years ago in the same intonation is uttered today just with, there is no digital technology, there is no internet transfer, there is no other aid except the human instrument. What is it that this knowledge system discovered in the way that our mind-body complex is and consciousness is that allowed them to capture and transmit it over hundreds of generations? My first moment of wonder when I listened to Sir over 6 years ago, when I started understanding what is Indian knowledge systems, was that we need to recreate this wonder. If you just walk past, I'm sure within 1 kilometer you will find a temple which is at least 700, 800 years old. We speak of 700, 800 years just like that. One of the problems we have is that when you have an abundance of culture, there is an abundance of indifference. If you have only one language, one book, one region, you will protect it with all your might. Sometimes abundance creates and breeds indifference. Right? That is the challenge that we have today. This institution that we created called the Guru. The Guru is the central institution through which the transference of consciousness and all of the knowledge happen. He just gave us the definition of an ashrama. Creating 1,000 munis is an ashram. That is the ashrama that actually made sure that this civilization is bound together. If Bharat was a knowledge-centered civilization, Guru is at the heart of this. So the second great institution when we think about civilizational contours that we need to reclaim and invest in is the idea of Guru. Guru also means the content. All of the knowledge systems, the Shakas, the Itihasa Puranas, the Darshanas, the folk knowledge systems, the tribal knowledge systems. Indian knowledge system is a cultural memeplex of at least 5 or 6 different streams. Like how different streams join Ganga, all of the different knowledge systems join this thing called Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. That is the way that we frame this. Bharat itself is a sacred geography. Like Rajashekara, I am told, says in Kavya Mimamsa, that the prince of literature married the princess of poetry. And together they went on a journey. And as far as they could travel, that became Bharatavarsha. This is not a nation state on the basis of ethnicity, skin color, race, religion. The tribal person in Odisha is speaking the language of Papa Punya because the prince of literature and the princess of poetry communicated with each other. The Deshiya and Margiya were never at loggerheads in this. This whole anthropological category of great traditions and small traditions, which is used to create difference, cannot capture the integral nature of Indian experience. So it is in the Guru and the knowledge system after family that we need to invest in to understand, reclaim, and sustain the contours of Indian civilization. The third great institution, and something that we do as our work, where we take people through experiences, is the temple. It is in the temple because culture, if I'm saying this, if in this sphere, all of us understand it. You don't even need to know the metaphysics of it, right? You don't need to know this is Purusha, this is Prakriti. We are both Purusha and Prakriti. I am bowing to you. That is all the knowledge component. But culturally, the genius of this civilization is that the highest of metaphysics was made accessible as an everyday living by culturalizing it. And culture spreads through socialization. When we meet each other, when we greet each other, is when we understand our cultural context. And the meta institution where all of this was brought together, art and aesthetics, architecture, religion, spiritual, metaphysical, economic, arts, education, all of this was held together in this institution called temple. That is why there is no difference for us between the sacred and profane. It is almost inconceivable to the Indian mind to think about the terms that we are given today, that there is a secular plane and then there is a sacred plane. To think that the responsibility of the state in political philosophy terms is only towards the secular and to abandon the sacred. Why is it that we are experiencing what we did on 22nd January? Why is it that none of the Indian communities feel that there is a dissonance? It's very, very fluent and it's very organic to us because the Bharatiya Chetana is a sacred Chetana. And to understand this, once again, to understand the idea of family, guru, temple, and what we mean by civilizational identity, we just have to understand ourselves. We just have to look at our own behavior. In each of our homes, I'm betting on this, mostly across Bharat, you will have one sacred space, mandir. Whatever your culture is, typically there is one. Look at our behavior in the rest of the house and look at our behavior when we go there. It is the same as we are all vulnerable, we are all frail. The challenge also when we talk to our young people today is that the knowledge system looks very inaccessible. There is a demand for greatness in this, and there is a supply of easy go by culture. This violence is what is distancing our young people from our culture. On one hand, it seems to be unattainable, what we consider to be our knowledge system. On the other hand, the supply of culture from technology and globalization is weakening our own instrument. So we have a weakening instrument and a greater claim, and the gap will only increase. So we'll have to reduce it to our experiences. In your experience, when you go into any other part of the house, you will be as you are, naturally, it's unmindful. But when you're in the presence of a sacred entity, does our behavior change? Are we more mindful? If we are not, somebody in the family at least will tell us, don't speak loudly. This alteration of consciousness, where we are able to actually look at something as beyond us, where we get in touch with the sacred inside us, the contour of Bharatiya civilization geographically is the genius of sacralizing the entire space. The 2000 kilometers to 1800 kilometers, north to south, east to west, from Himalayas to Indian Ocean, it was sacralized so that you are never away from a moment of sacred entity. That is why Tirthas, that is why Kshetra, that is why Yatra. It is these institutions that our civilization created, which always, regardless, because our challenge as human beings is that we have two kinds of sukha. Mohan Raghavanji has written a very brilliant book recently, Elements of Indian Knowledge System. I'll recommend it to the faculty and teachers here. And he puts it beautifully. The two contrasting impulses that we have, one is the Indriya Sukha, which is engagement of our senses for instant gratification, and Atma Sukha, which is the deferred gratification through a process of inward exegesis, right? So this challenge is compounded today because your indriyas are bombarded relentlessly into the palm of your hand. So you don't have a moment's escape. All of our young people today, when they're coming into the classroom, their attention is already captured. And we need to understand this as a global civilizational threat. Because when you use Facebook, when you use Twitter, I was in the industry, you do not pay for it. Has anybody here paid for Facebook? Have you paid, any of the young students paid for Insta? But these are extraordinarily sophisticated technologies. How are they making money? How are they surviving as a business? They are making it because you and I are the product. It is our attention that is commoditized. This is in fact called the attention economy. It is by capturing our attention and giving us bottomless scroll. That is a design choice. The ability to keep scrolling, to keep producing dopamine, to capture our senses is the way technology is envisaged today. And when you are in that zone, you don't have any access to sacred. So when we're talking about knowledge systems, reclaiming our civilizational identity, the contours of this, there is a global strategic context in which India will rise, and the new colonization is not going to be a colonization of the land or resources, it is a colonization of our senses. It is a colonization of our sense of time. The world today is all going through one world metaphysics. Our sense of time itself has been taken away from us. The minute your sense of time is taken away, it means that you always are anxious. That is why we are seeing this combination of great material prosperity and increasing mental health disorders. 40% cases of loneliness, 60% cases of opioid usage and abuse in US, 50% divorce rates. This is what is being imported as culture today. So there is a question that we need to be able to ask the Western thinkers and Western commentators, while respecting all of the brilliant knowledge that they produce, is that we look at this differently. We look at it from a multi-life metaphysics. Our relationship with time is not giving us anxiety, it is giving us liberation. Because we are evolving. There is a scope for transcendence. Our job is not to maximize because you only live once. Our job is to optimize to make sure that there is a transcendence. So the case again, once again, just to sum it up, all the young people out there, you will enter a world that is going to be increasingly complex. An investment into Indian knowledge systems is an investment in reclaiming your own authenticity, your own agency over time, over your senses. If you do not do it, somebody else will do it for you. And when that happens, India's rise will not just be contested, but will be cut down by Indians themselves. And the second great issue why we should pay attention to this, not just an academic conference like Akshay said, this has extraordinary ramifications on the Indian national integrity itself, is that our boundaries today are at risk. There is a challenge that we must understand, and that comes from the knowledge system. And thirdly, within our own lives, the access to meaning, joy, and well-being is entirely dependent on reclaiming your civilizational identity, the source for which is Indian knowledge systems. If you do that, you will see the magnificence of these three institutions, the family, the guru, and the temple. And our work should be to reclaim all three of them. And I'm once again greatly indebted to all the organizers. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir, for stressing on the relevance of Indian knowledge systems for reclaiming Bharat's civilizational identity. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Savitribai Phule Pune University, Professor Suresh Gosavi, to share his thoughts on this particular theme.
Hello. Namaskar, good morning. Dignitary sitting IAS, Dr. R. Sadashivamurthy, Vice Chancellor, Sri Venkateshwara Vedic University, Tirupati, Chief Guest of this inaugural function, and the address for this particular conference, national conference, or contours of Indian civilization identity, which the Honorable Sir has modified as contours of Bharatiya civilization identity. The second speaker has talked about the Bharatiya Gyan Parampara. Other dignitaries sitting on the dais on behalf of Savitribai Phule Pune University, Department of Sanskrit and the Prabodhan Manch, I welcome you all academicians on this beautiful campus of Savitribai Phule Pune University. As rightly mentioned by both the speaker that, well, contours, I mean, we need to put something in a limit. And as a physicist, okay, I normally talk about the limits. Normally we try to solve that within the limit. We don't go from 0 to infinite, okay? When we ask to calculate the charge on the sphere, we consider infinitely small area. We try to calculate that, and then we try to correlate that with the charge on the sphere. Similarly, as they rightly mentioned about the Guru Shishya Parampara, then here talk about planet and, I mean, the difference. I mean, it just trust your heart that it's not a planet, it's a graha. So things are altogether different when we look at this subject, which is civilization. And when we try to correlate this with Bharatiya knowledge system, Indian knowledge system, then people, when there was no measurement system available, still they tried to make Panchadhatu, wherein the concentration of all elements has to be calculated such that on the surface will be terminated with hydrogen so that it will not oxidize. And with the current technology where we have the measurements done till 6-digit measurement, okay, still we are not able to make it in the laboratory. I mean, okay, like that means, okay, we had a top-down approach wherein they used to make a symmetry when they made some of the things, okay, where we can have the stupa present, okay, we cannot oxidize. They are made with the this panchadhatu. So that means, okay, we have a huge tradition, long tradition. One side we start from there, and other side, okay, with the new generation we talk about chat GPT, everything is present. So you don't need to even think, okay, so how do we correlate this and how do we connect these dots such that this knowledge will go to the next generation who will be witnessing the Vikasit Bharat 2047. I think in this particular forum, the connecting these dots will come up with a good deliberation and they will really come up with a good subject because we are in the position to implement this NEP 2020, and this is one of the important subjects which people have not really understood, okay, what exactly we need to give to the society, to the student, under the heading of this Indian knowledge system, because everyone thinks, okay, what they have the knowledge, that is Indian knowledge system, but it's not the case. I think we have to come up with the solution that, okay, this is exactly the knowledge system which we are present, and now we need to reach to the new generation. With this brief, okay, once again, I welcome you all on this campus and hope that the deliberation throughout today and tomorrow will come up with the white paper which will really talk about the civilization identity of Bharat. With this brief, okay, I'm thankful to the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank Sir for extending his support and gracing the presence for today. And now I request Professor Ravindra Shamnapurkar, Coordinator and Member Management Council, Savitribai Phule University, Pune, to deliver his vote of thanks.
Namaskar. I am very much thankful to all the present in this particular place for this national conference on contours of Bharatiya civilization identity. I am very much thankful to Professor Dr. R. Sadashivamurthy, Vice Chancellor of Sri Venkateshwara Vedic University and Chief Guest of this inaugural function. He have given a very good pathway and the direction for thought. Also, I am thankful to the keynote speaker and founder of Bharat, Shrit Raghav Krishna. Needless to speak what he have told to us. And as usual, he is always inspiring us, guiding us, and always behind us for such good programs in this campus. The Vice Chancellor and President of this particular inaugural function, Dr. Suresh Gosavi. I am thankful to all these three dignitaries for sparing their time for this inaugural function of conference and giving all of us the direction for discussion happening for the next 2 days. I am also thankful to the dignitaries who are present here in front of me. I cannot take name of all these persons, but precisely who is guiding always and also behind this conference, Dr. Aniruddha Deshpande sir, and all the dignitaries for pushing us for such a good conference with all of you. I am once again thankful all the Prabodhan Manch members, the paper presenting students, faculties, and all the members who are working since last 1.5 months for this conference in this inaugural function. And with this, I think this session is concluded.
We thank the dignitaries on the stage for gracing their presence, and now we will request the participants with their chairs and rapporteurs to be at the appropriate venue and the time for the further sessions. Thank you.